Well, hello, welcome to Round the Table Live with Christian Concern. And today we are talking about the teacher who has been banned from teaching in any classroom in the UK for misgendering a pupil. And I'm delighted that we have got Joshua Sutcliffe himself online with us today, live. Welcome, Joshua. Great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. And we've also got Steve Beegoo, our head of education at Christian Concern, online, ready to talk to us as well with his expertise and opinion on this, what's happened here. Now, so Joshua, what a lot of media attention you've had this week. Front page of the Telegraph, I think, and then subsequently cover of a insert in the Telegraph as well, and lots of other newspapers and media appearances. How have you found it this week?
Yeah, well, it's not a regular week, is it?
And just remind us what has happened to you. What prompted all the media attention this week from you?
Well, it was off the back of a hearing with the Teaching Regulation Agency to discern. They were trying to determine whether or not it's fit for me to be in classrooms in the UK, as you mentioned. And very sadly, their ruling was, no, I'm not fit. And really, we, should I carry on, Tim, or have you got more specific questions?
Well, no, I mean, this all happened, it originated back in, was it 2017, Joshua, when you said, well done, girls, to a bunch of girls in class. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. So that was 6 years ago now. But prior to that incident, I had the Bible club that I was running at the school shut down. And that kind of was the very first thing that really made me realize that actually, the school wasn't really interested in me sharing the Christian faith, and letting students have the opportunity to learn about Christianity. It was a voluntary club, and that really grieved me. But then it was shortly after that this incident happened regarding the transgender pupil, of which I was refusing to use their pronouns. The student was born a girl and wanted pronouns, male pronouns, and I just thought it was an appropriate compromise to just use the student's name. But apparently that wasn't enough. And that was actually part of the ruling by the TRA in recent weeks. One of the foremost reasons as to why it was deemed that I was unfit to practice to teach in UK classrooms, or in classrooms in England, I think. And so, really a shocking ruling, because it's not just us Christians that have, reservations about, the transgender, thinking, the transgender way of thinking, yeah.
And what's striking here, Joshua, is that first of all, you lost your job, right? Which is bad enough in itself. And then now they've gone and prosecuted you, the Teaching Regulation Authority have prosecuted you, and you've lost your profession. And, if this ruling stands, you can never go into a classroom again.
Yeah, really, really sad. That not only the school had, a strong agenda to impose this on me and the students, but the Department of Education took a similar position. And you think that the Department of Education would have a better understanding of, people's freedoms and rights at large, and that, not everyone is going to agree on every issue. But by this ruling, the TRA has essentially said, if you don't agree with this position, and if you don't come in line, in following the transgender, should we call it ideology or a way of thinking, or then you're under the microscope and you might be punished. And so really quite shocking that the Department of Education would make that decision. And there's probably a large reason why it's garnered so much media attention.
I think you're the first teacher, to have been banned in this way for this kind of thing. I mean, you occasionally see stories of people banned for sexual exploitation of children or something like that, but you've been banned for misgendering pupils or a pupil, and that's a new thing, and that's novel, and that's part of what's caught the attention here, I think. Steve, tell us, what is the Teaching Regulation Authority? What do they do?
The Teaching Regulation Agency, yes, Teaching Regulation Agency. Well, their job is the regulation of the teaching profession. They have that responsibility, which includes misconduct hearings, which is what Joshua's been a part of. They also have an admin role to kind of keep a record of all the teachers and trainee teachers as well, their training numbers, their teacher reference numbers. So they have, in schools, you have panel hearings when there's potential misconduct or grievances. That schools have panel hearings to kind of work out what's happened and discuss it and work out what they should do. Essentially, the kind of misconduct hearings that the TRA have is kind of higher national level of that kind of thing. But they have the power to discipline not just in one school, discipline a staff member in one school, but they have the power to prohibit from teaching across the whole of the UK. And they do that by issuing something called a prohibition order. And that's what's gone on here. And it's really interesting, though, who they have on their panel. When you have panels in a school, you have different governors, you have different people involved. When you can look at the report yourself online if you wish to, you can see that there are particular legal people, those that are getting legal advice come from Brown Jacobson. So Mr. Andrew Collins is from Brown Jacobson Solicitors, and he was the presenting officer. So it's a really key role there. It's fascinating to look at who they've called in to join in on this panel, because that solicitors organisation is a very strong LGBTQ campaigning solicitors organisation. And I don't know if we've got any links to their website or anything that our admin people can show up there, but it's quite clear that it talks about them taking action to ensure that we celebrate and observe key dates and campaigns such as LGBTQ History Month, Pride Month, and guess what? Transgender Day of Visibility. Later on, it talks about them hosting events to educate the firm around challenges to promote better allyship. You must be an ally. And they even actively participate themselves as a soliciting group and having a presence at national and regional pride parades. So they're a campaigning political organisation, and these are the legal people who have been asked to play a key role. And there's another legal group in there which is very similar to that as well. Eversheds Sutherland, they're also represented on this panel. So in some ways, you might understand why they came to some of the conclusions that they did.
Yeah. So let's and thank you. I can see some people commenting here. You got questions for Joshua or others about this? Do let us know. I can see there, like Heather Scammell is raising a point about some people distancing themselves for your case about you revealing information on TV. I don't think that was actually part of the allegation against you, was it? The point was the main allegation against you, Joshua, was that you misgendered pupil A, and you didn't use their preferred pronoun. And they said, by not using pupil A's preferred pronoun, Mr. Sutcliffe had failed to treat pupil A with dignity and respect and failed to safeguard pupil A's well-being. And that was really the primary allegation against you, wasn't it, Joshua? And the TRA had taken this hardline stance that if you don't call a pupil by their preferred pronoun, you are you're worthy of being banned from the profession. I mean, it's a very extraordinarily hardline, ask that they're giving there, isn't it, Joshua?
Yes, and you can read the document online. It's on the government website. But like you say, that really was one of the principal reasons. There were a few other things that were part of the reasons for prohibition order. Which we could discuss in more detail, but in terms of the misgendering and that particular pupil, that was allegation that they found me guilty of not,
and the TRA refers to this pupil who is a girl as he, and says that it's worthy of banning from the profession for refusing to call her him. I mean, Steve, what do you make of this particular point?
Well, it's what they're saying is he's failing to safeguard the pupil's welfare when all the evidence is pointing to, and there's being a shift in the public discourse around this, actually saying to socially transition, to go along with the saying that boys are girls and girls are boys, that actually this is a safeguarding issue. So it's slightly perverse.
Affirming them in their transgender identity is the real safeguarding problem, is what you're saying, Steve.
Absolutely,
yeah,
right.
The real safeguarding problem is when you go along with a mistaken identity and you affirm them in it, because it just adds to their confusion and makes it more likely they'll go down further treatments and irreversible damage and all this kind of stuff. I mean, isn't that right?
What they say, I think in the text it says the adverse public interest considerations outweigh any interest in retaining Mr. Sutcliffe in the profession. Now, this is bizarre. The adverse public interest. So they're making a judgment on public interest. So these organizations, these legal advisors who are thinking certain things should be promoted and they should be campaigning for certain things in the public realm, it's those people that are deciding what is really in the public interest here. And what's in the public interest, in their view, is to make sure that we call the pronouns to a child that's got gender distress, call them the opposite pronouns, because that'll be the best thing.
Because by stating public interest there, Steve, rather than the child's best interest, do you know what I mean? Public interest. They're actually saying, it's almost like they're saying they want to make an example of Joshua here in the public sphere.
Right. Exactly right. And that comes across in some of the wordings as well in the judgment of Joshua's not shown appropriate remorse, unless he kind of bows and scrapes around all of this. When in 2 years' time, when Joshua has the opportunity of appealing for this prohibition to be taken away, what's being suggested by that is he needs to show a kind of a proper level of contrition that, oh yes, I should definitely be socially transitioning pupils by calling them the opposite pronouns.
It's extraordinary. We'll come back to that.
We will be appealing at the High Court. It's worth saying,
yes.
Yeah. So there will be an opportunity to take the case to a higher panel than the TRA. But like you say, I think if it goes to the TRA again, then it will be a similarly constructed panel.
Let's talk about the appeal a little bit later. I want to just get on to the other allegations against you, Joshua, because number 2 was you were asked a question by a pupil about your views on gay marriage, and you said you disagreed with it. And they said that had happened, but they also said that was not a problem because you're allowed to answer that question from a pupil about your beliefs. And that's kind of an encouraging finding in a sense, isn't it? Because teachers, if you're asked what do you believe about this, well, you can say what you believe.
Yeah, exactly. Students asked me about marriage in the Bible Club, and I shared that the way that God defines marriage, which is a union for life between a man and a woman, and that spread around the school, and before long, lots of students knew that was the Christian position about marriage, and that formed part of the allegation by some of the students. Because they knew that was my view, which isn't, which is a Christian view about marriage. And so, I mean, the very fact that I dare mention, the Christian view of marriage in any context, anywhere. I mean, it seems like it didn't really matter the details to the panel. What mattered was that I had that view. And they were very happy to go, just go along with what the students had alleged without really considering the details. And I think, the wider point is that they just don't like the Christian worldview. Yes, I was on trial, but we gave a very good account as to why we believe these things, and that, it isn't just, something that we've constructed ourselves. Is because we adhere to the Word of God, and that's our foundation for our beliefs and for our thinking. And
if I can add a crumb of comfort from what they said on that thing, is that answering a direct question about your views on gay marriage was not a problem, essentially. So there is a crumb of comfort here for teachers to know that if they are asked that question, they are able to express that. Clearly, there was a kind of toxic and pressured environment around you at that moment in time. But I think Christians should still be bold and brave when asked, particularly to be able to express the Christian viewpoint, the biblical viewpoint on marriage and gender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so that's kind of encouraging in a funny way. And then, but there were 3 other allegations, wasn't there? One was that you stated that person D, had stopped being gay as it was wrong, or something like that. And they obviously didn't like that. They really didn't like that, Joshua, as you stated, didn't like your Christian beliefs on that one. Said that would fail to treat people with respect, even though in a sense that's kind of almost a statement of fact. This person stopped doing it because they thought it was wrong. Then you are alleged to have shown a PragerU video about masculinity in a class. So you say you did not show this video in a class, but they believed the pupils and took that against you. Said wasn't shown proper balance. So they basically criticized that video, but on your personal website and personal videos that you've done online, they said that's fine, nothing wrong with that. You've got freedom of expression. You can say what you like outside the classroom, which is kind of encouraging as well for teachers in schools. You can go out there, be evangelistic, share your faith, be as upfront about your faith as you like outside the classroom, and that will not land you in problems. Is that right, Steve?
Well, yes, I believe that's where things have ended up. I mean, Joshua's case isn't the only one that is kind of live at the moment for us.
Oh, yeah.
Is it relevant to speak about Hannah?
Yeah.
Do you think at this point?
Yeah.
Well, Hannah's situation is one where she was in a primary school, and an 8-year-old.
This is, by the way, a pseudonym because we can't identify her.
Exactly.
So yeah, Hannah, go on.
It was an 8-year-old child who was going to be coming into the school and was due to join her class, and the parents and the child and the school were saying that she should act as the opposite gender, and this was all being supported and backed by, I believe, Mermaids, a charity that's transgender promoting charity. But because Hannah's Christian beliefs and her beliefs about the well-being and safeguarding of this 8-year-old, and also the other children in that school, she couldn't back that. She couldn't go along with it, and she raised it very sensibly, politely, with the school, with the head teacher, and it ended up felt like she needed to raise it as a safeguarding issue more broadly. I mean, you can watch the video of her on the Christian Concern website to kind of hear in her own words. Her voice has been, isn't it terrible? Her voice has had to be kind of muffled and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I guess, but this is out of her extreme caution to not want the child to be in any way be able to be identified or the school to be identified. So this is really, really caring teacher, but she was, and because she's so caring, she was not prepared to go along with the damaging social transitioning, which is a term that means the process of using different pronouns and essentially demonstrating in your actions that you believe the boy is a girl or the girl is a boy. It's called gender affirmative action, this social transitioning. She was not prepared to go along with it, and she's now working in a sandwich bar because she was handed out of that school, sacked from being able to work there. So it's another terrible case, which is not hugely dissimilar from what's happened to Joshua. But this is an example in a primary school. 8-year-old children who are in that kind of stage
and
of
Steve,
thinking.
The evidence is, and I think that Hannah made use of this. We've got expert witness reports which we used in the case of Nigel Rowe. The evidence is that for the children, it's harmful to affirm them in a transgender identity, and good for them to affirm them in their biological and legal. You see, this is the thing that really strikes me. The science is against the TRA. Surely legally as well, all Joshua was doing was referring to the pupil by their legal and biological gender. And he's been punished for refusing to lie about who this pupil is according to law and according to biology, and actually banned from the classroom for refusing to lie about who this person is according to law and according to biology.
The grooming of society, the grooming of almost every profession by the LGBT organizations, the ideologues, has been huge. And it's only really recently that people seem to be starting to wake up. I mean, Nigel and Sally Rowe, we picked up that case on these issues exactly back in 2016, 2017.
2016, yeah.
Yeah. And they were really the first to raise the scale that had already started to flow into schools. And there's been many years that have passed since then, and the introduction of relationship and sex education, which has proved a moment by which many organizations have flooded schools with their training and their resources. And much of this training and much of these resources are based in this gender ideology, this gender affirming approach to everything, which is why we see this social contagion spreading, not just in our children, but throughout society. Oh, we must just affirm. That's the kind thing to do. We must do that. That's the kind thing and best for their well-being. When, as you rightly say, the science is pointing completely in the opposite direction.
Yeah. So, and Joshua, we're going to appeal this, aren't we? This particular ruling, and tell us about that and the process for that. Because the problem is that could take another many months or a year to come to court again, couldn't it?
Yeah, thanks to yourselves at Christian Concern and the Christian Legal Centre, and thank you for your support all these years on. We're going to lodge an appeal to the High Court. So we have 28 days. So I think, the next couple of weeks. So I know that you've been working hard at finding grounds for appeal and putting together a strong case so that it will be heard at the High Court. And then like
one
you
of
say,
the things that really struck me, by the way, Joshua, reading the judgment, is that they mentioned that expert witnesses were called, and they don't name them. When there was an expert theologian and an expert charity leader, they say, well, that was actually Maya Forstater. So they don't want to name her. And then they pay no attention. There doesn't make no mention of what they said anywhere in it. So they didn't listen to that. So that's clearly appealable just on that basis, that, they didn't even listen or pay any attention or engage at all with expert witnesses' testimonies brought into court in your favor.
Yeah, they were fantastic expert reports. Like you say, Maya Forstater was sharing the dangers of affirming students who want to socially transition, and how we must protect children from going down these paths of taking drugs and surgery and so on. And it actually awoke me to these things even more so. This is really something that is quite dangerous for these young people. It can affect the rest of their lives, and really, as adults, we should say, no, this is, approach this with much caution.
Yes.
And really, maybe what should really happen is these decisions are left to adults, and that the state takes strong action and says, no, we shouldn't be affirming these students who wish to socially transition. And like you say, that was ignored. We also had another expert witness giving reasons as to why Christians believe what they believe, and all of the things that were alleged against me. He gave an excellent account of the Christian faith and how it informs our thinking. It was, in fact, one of the panel members said, I've really enjoyed listening to you. He was a very smart witness, and sadly, that lesson, that Christian lesson.
Enjoyed it and ignored it.
Enjoyed it, but ignored it. Yes, and
well, we will definitely hope that this appeal is successful, and because I think there are multiple reasons. But the other thing that strikes me, Steve, is this has got to be like the harshest sanction that the TRA can impose on any teacher, isn't it? And yet, in the news, I think this week there's another teacher who sent sexually explicit messages to a 70-year-old pupil.
Yes, in Scotland, yeah,
and was banned for 2 years. And here's Joshua, who called someone by their legal and biological gender, and he's banned for life.
Well, yeah, I think it's always kind of initially, even in Scotland, it's like an initial 2-year period, and saying that you can appeal after that 2-year period.
Right. Yeah. True.
It's kind of an indefinite ban, but you have an opportunity to appeal. But they're quite clear in saying that the right to appeal does not mean that it's going to be removed. But you're absolutely right that the kind of level of punishment, the level of banning somebody, is normally reserved for really significant misdemeanors of a sexual nature, of grooming children, of getting involved in a relationship with children, or things like significant dishonesty around exam. You've been falsifying records and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the kind of misconduct for which normally the TRA get involved and would ban a teacher. But this is, as you've said already, this is a novel occasion where the main reason has been the misgendering of a pupil. And I'm just coming back to the Christian worldview that was tried to be explained in the misconduct hearing. What we've got is a new kind of worldview about who children are and who they are as people. Essentially, children, you're not created by God. This is the fundamental part of the Christian gospel, is that we're created by God, male and female. Absolutely fundamental gospel truth that you have to understand right at the start. And instead of that, it's been transposed by, actually, you create yourself. And the universe, or maybe some distant God, makes mistakes, which is why I must be in the wrong body. All of this language and promotion is basically saying you can be born in the wrong body. And so who is causing that? Who is doing that? It's a religious belief. It's the universe has caused me to be born in the wrong body, and now I need to create myself. And on what basis? On what authority? The authority of your own individual personal feelings. That is the basis, children, on which you are to understand yourself and create yourself.
You decide who you are. Yeah.
You decide who you create yourself. Literally, it's a self-creation narrative that is at the bottom of all of this. And Christians need to find confidence and wisdom in how to explain clearly the basic truths of Christianity, which includes creation.
Yeah. So, Joshua, the other thing that strikes me about this ruling is that it's coming out ahead of guidance which the government has promised for schools on transgenderism. And a part of your point, which you keep saying, is that you were never given any guidance on this. The government's promised guidance, and partly in response to Nigel and Sally Rowe, who they ended up paying compensation to and promising to bring out new guidance on transgenderism in schools when they challenged, should really pupils in primary schools be allowed to cross-dress? And we don't know what this guidance is going to say. The TRA don't know what this guidance is going to say. What do you want it to say, Joshua?
Let me answer that. I just want to briefly comment on something you said a moment ago, which was about, the types of people that are given prohibition orders, and I want all Christians to, take heart. This is what our Lord Jesus Christ did, isn't it? He was tried, amongst these, sorts of people, and Paul and all the disciples, once Christ is resurrected, this is the testimony of the church, is that we will, at times, obviously we don't seek these things, but, just by very nature of being believers in the Lord Jesus, these sorts of things can happen to us. So, obviously don't, believer, go seeking these things, but don't be afraid, not, share the gospel, share the truth. So in terms of the guidance, yes, I would love, I think we saw the Sex Matters publication came out this week, why it should, clearly say that schools should not,
allow people to socially transition.
Yes, and I would agree with that. And, we shouldn't allow it in schools until 18. It should be a blanket ban, and anyone caught doing it should face the same, hearings that I've faced. It really is something we should be really, avoiding in our schools.
Well, that's right. It should be. This is upside down. It should be the other way around. People who agree to affirm children in a false gender identity and speak to them contrary to their legal and biological gender, they're the ones that ought to be facing sanctions, not people who are speaking the truth according to who they are legally and biologically, and according to who God made them to be.
Exactly. And you know, why did I enter teaching in the first place? To help the young people and to, you know, set them up for, you know, a good life. You want these young people to be safe and to flourish. And, you know, if you let them go along with lies, then that's not going to aid them. And so I would love the government to be strong and to do something like stop social transitioning in schools. And you know, I look forward to it with bated breath. You know, see if
well, they said they're bringing out this term, which, I mean, it's half term now, isn't it? So so I think, you know, that's before mid-July or something like that. Steve, what are your thoughts on the guidance that the government's going to bring out?
They've been saying for ages that they're going to bring it out. They're now saying that, again, as you say, the summer term is when it should be coming out. But Gillian Keegan has said, and there will be a long consultation period once it's been introduced. I think we all need to read that, see what it says, and get involved in consulting about it, really backing the good things in it, but also pushing back against anything which still sniffs of gender identity ideology being allowed into schools, and social transitioning being something that could be seen as acceptable in schools. I mean, there are some grounds for hope. Gillian Keegan herself was talking on an interview on Mumsnet again just recently, and she was being asked questions about whether parents should be informed about what's going on with their children, because we've got huge issues. Again, that these reports that are coming out are regularly saying is that parents are not being told when their child is wanting to change their name or change their pronouns, and schools are going along with it, and parents find out some way down the line. And you can imagine that on Mumsnet, they were very concerned about that. And when she was asked, do you think it's fine for teachers to be told to affirm immediately, which is essentially what teachers are often told, and this kind of plays out with Joshua's story, what she said was, no, I don't agree with that. I think transparency is really important. I think the parents' role is really important. Parents, first and foremost, are the main advocates for their children. They're the people closest to their children. And then asked if parents should definitely be informed if their child is transgender, she said, I think so. Yes, it seems obvious, doesn't it? The common sense sort of nature. It just seems so obvious. But yes, parents should definitely be informed. Now, I have to say, this is a change of tune from the messages that we've been getting from someone like Gillian Keegan, who's often styled as an ally in this kind of area. So, but there are grounds for hope. These reports that have been written, the new Social Covenant Unit, Miriam Cates' report, excellent report on what's being taught in RSE, highlighted this gender ideology stuff coming out, and had some key recommendations, which we hope will be in the summer transgender guidance. And also the policy exchange report. Again, if you're involved in education, look at the policy exchange report called Asleep at the Wheel, which is really where we've been, asleep at the wheel. And it talks very clearly about the safeguarding issues and the gender affirmative approaches which are rife in our schools. So we, as Joshua says, we want the guidance to state as clearly as possible, this should not be happening. But this will be very counter to the distance that many schools have gone in taking on board what the organisations that they've been trained by, where that's taken them.
So I see a comment here from Wilforce SA. I think that's our Wilforce South Africa group there, watching from South Africa on YouTube. Surely if people want to use language in a way to affirm their personal view of reality, they're free to do so, but no one should force everyone else to use the language as they want. And this is really what's happened to you, Joshua, isn't it? It's compelled speech. You must lie about who this person is. That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why I couldn't do that, in good conscience, before the Lord. We serve the Lord first of all, and in good conscience, I really couldn't go along with that lie, And what happened to Daniel, what happened to others, Esther, and so there's always, when you do these things, you might get thrown. Joseph, when you do these things, you might get thrown in prison and so on. But in the end, God, I trust that God will provide for me and my family, and I'd much rather stand on God's word than anything else. So yes, that is what's happened, and I've refused to bow to it. And obviously, without the help of Christian Concern, none of this would be possible. So thank you for everything you've done for me, and all the skills that I don't have, you all have in abundance, and so I appreciate you writing the legal documents and forming arguments and all these things. So thanks for your support.
Well, thank you for standing up and refusing to bow, as you said, and refusing to lie about the person's pupils' legal and biological gender. Steve, what would you say to teachers, and how would you pray about this?
Yes. Well, again, for every Joshua who's been kind of hauled over the coals, there is a John. For every Hannah, there's a Heather. There are those who we've supported and helped. There's more who we've supported and helped, who have been able to change things in their schools. They've been able to change policy, change procedures within their schools, educate their schools about the issues that we've been talking about here. Show them some of these reports that have been being, and very brave and courageous parents as well, who fronted the schools and said, you should not be doing this. And this, on occasions, has had the desired effect and has changed what schools are doing. And those teachers have been able to function in their schools according to their conscience. Teachers need much wisdom and much prayer, Christian teachers especially at this time in our culture. But there is hope. We have a king, we have a Lord who is higher than all of the courts that we might find ourselves in on this earth. And we pray to him and ask him to give us the wisdom so that we can function in this society. Sometimes it will mean challenge and suffering. Other times we will be listened to, and we're able to persuade and direct the people where we are. And we have to keep in mind the children, the young people who are being damaged and harmed. And when you see that, when you've experienced children who've gone through that, when you know them and you know their stories, it does give you a strong conviction that the lies that they're being told, the way that they're being shaped to think, it's evil, and that gives us the courage to be able to stand and to speak. And we must ask the Lord for wisdom as we do that, of course, but we also need the courage to be able to not be silent. And I guess our prayers for all of us is that we speak the gospel, we speak the whole gospel, including the creation aspects of the gospel, as well as Jesus Christ's salvation for us, and the future that we can look forward to, and direct children and young people into knowing Jesus Christ. Let the children come to me and do not hinder them, Jesus says. And for all of us, we know that his presence is with us to do that. And in doing that, whether we're a teacher, whether we're a parent, whether we're a member of a church congregation, we can all know his presence with us to do that. Help children come to know Jesus. What we are seeing, somebody's commented in the comments about a Civitas report that shows that the 16 to 18-year-olds, 10% of them are saying, do you know what? I'm considering I should be the other gender. 10% of them, 1 in 10 now, because of this stuff. We need to be praying for these children, praying for our teachers, and playing our part where we can.
And thank you very much, Steve, but also praying for Joshua's appeal of this decision to be successful. I think, because we really can't let this stand. It is outrageous. Hence the massive amount of press attention, media attention that Joshua's been getting, because I think there's a sense out there in the world, let alone amongst the church, that it's outrageous that you can be banned from the profession for calling a child according to their legal and biological gender. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Joshua. We'll keep praying for you, very much on your side, very much with you, lots of support for you here. Thank you, Steve, as well, for joining us and your wisdom as well. And thank you, the rest of you, for watching and listening. Hope you found that useful and interesting, and have a great weekend, and look forward to catching up with you again next week. Thank you.
Thank you.